Commander Tae Min stood on the bridge of Seoul's Pride and watched the stars through the wide window. His ship was small compared to the massive vessels around it. The human fleet looked like toys next to the giant ships of their new allies. Corvan Empire had arrived 3 days ago. Their ships were dark metal beasts covered in spikes and weapons. Each one was 10 times bigger than the largest human ship. When the first Corvan vessel came through the jump gate, it blocked out the sun from the space station. "Sir, the Corvan war chief wants to speak with you," said Hai Jin from her station. She was the ship's chief engineer and one of the smartest. People Tae Min knew, but her voice was quiet now. Like everyone else, she was nervous about meeting their new allies. Tae Min nodded and walked to the communication screen. The image flickered and showed a huge face covered in dark fur. Brutok, the Corvan war chief, had teeth like knives and eyes like burning coals. When he spoke, his voice was deep like thunder. "Human commander," Brutok said, and the way he said human made it sound like something dirty. "We will meet on my ship to plan the attack. Bring your best warriors." The screen went black before Tae Min could answer. He looked at his crew. They were all young and scared. Most of them had never seen real combat. Dai Ho, his marine sergeant, was only 25, but he was the toughest fighter on the ship. Still, he looked like a child next to the Corvans they had seen. "Get ready," Tae Min told his crew. "We're going to meet our new friends." The shuttle trip to the Corvan flagship was short, but felt like hours. When they docked, the airlock opened with a hiss. Hot air rushed in, smelling of metal and something wild. The gravity was stronger here, making every step harder. Giant Corvan warriors lined the halls. They were 3 meters tall with thick fur and muscles like iron. Their armor was black and covered in spikes. Each one carried weapons that could cut a human in half. They watched the humans walk by, and some of them laughed. It was not a friendly sound. The meeting room was huge and dark. War Chief Brutok sat at the head of a metal table. Other Corvan commanders filled the seats around him. At the far end, human officers looked tiny and out of place. "So these are Earth's mighty warriors," said one Corvan. His name was Gromax, and he was younger than the others. "They look like they would break if I breathed on them." "Quiet, Gromax," Brutok said, but he was smiling. "We must work with these creatures." Tae Min felt his face get hot, but he said nothing. He had orders to keep the peace no matter what. The enemy they faced was worse than any insult. "The Void Swarm is cunning," Brutok continued. "Our scouts have seen their ships at the edge of the galaxy. They eat everything in their path. Planets, stars, entire solar systems. Nothing stops them." A hologram appeared over the table. It showed dark ships that looked like they were alive. They moved like snakes through space, twisting and changing shape. There were thousands of them, maybe millions. "We have fought them before," said an old Corvan commander named Threkis. 500 years ago, they came to our home worlds. We lost 3 planets before we could drive them back." "But you won," said Sujin, the human tactical analyst. She was small and quiet, but her mind was sharp as a blade. "We won by paying a price in blood that you softskins could never understand," Brutok growled. "We threw 1,000,000 warriors at them. Most died, but we made them leave. And now they're back," Tae Min said. "Yes, and this time they are stronger. Our spies say they have learned from our last fight. Their ships can change and adapt. What kills? One might not work on the next." The room was quiet for a long moment. Everyone stared at the hologram of the enemy fleet. It looked impossible to defeat. "What's the plan?" asked Wu Bin, the human pilot. He was young and brave, maybe too brave. "For his own good. Simple," Brutok said. We hit them hard and fast before they can spread out. Corvin ships will lead the attack. Human ships will support us from behind. The way he said support made it clear what he really meant. Human ships would stay out of the way while real warriors did the fighting. Our weapons might be smaller, Tae-min said carefully, but they're more precise. We could help with your weapons are toys, interrupted Gromax. I have seen your ships. They are made of thin metal and hope. One hit from a Void Swarm bioship, and you will be space dust. Hygiene spoke up from behind Tae-min. Our shields use different technology. Maybe if we work together, you will follow behind us, Brutok said with finality. That is how you can help. Try not to get in our way. The meeting ended soon after. As the humans walked back to their shuttle, they could hear Corvin laughter echoing through the halls. The sound followed them all the way home. Back on Soul's Pride, the bridge was quiet. Everyone was thinking about what they had heard. The Void Swarm was coming, and their allies thought they were useless. They're wrong about us, Daeho said finally. We might be smaller, but we're not weak. Size isn't everything, Hyjin agreed. There are other ways to fight. Tae-min looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, an enemy was coming. That could destroy everything they loved. Their allies thought humans were just in the way. Maybe they were right. Maybe humans really were too small and weak to matter in this fight. But Tae-min had learned something in his years of command. The biggest hammer wasn't always the best tool for the job. Sometimes you needed something smaller, something more clever. Get some rest, he told his crew. Tomorrow we start training with our new friends. And maybe we'll show them that humans can surprise people. The stars outside seemed brighter now, like they were getting ready for the battle to come. In the distance, space was dark and empty, but Tae-min knew that wouldn't last long. The Void Swarm was coming, and when they arrived, everyone would learn what humans could really do. The alarm bells rang through Soul's Pride like angry metal birds. Tae-min ran to the bridge, pulling on his uniform jacket. 3 weeks had passed since the first meeting with the Corvins. 3 weeks of training together, and it was not going. Well, what's happening? He asked as he reached his command chair. Void Swarm scout ships, Sujin reported from her station. 6 of them, coming fast. The Corvins are already moving to attack. On the main screen, Tae-min could see the Corvin fleet charging forward. Their big ships moved like angry bulls, weapons blazing. The Void Swarm ships looked different from the pictures. They were alive, twisting through space like black snakes. Their skin seemed to shine and change colors. Follow the plan, Tae-min ordered. Stay behind the Corvin line and provide support fire. But even as he said it, he could see the plan was wrong. The Void Swarm ships moved too fast. They dodged. The heavy Corvin weapons like dancers. When the Corvin plasma cannons did hit, the alien ships seemed to learn. The second shot that hit the same ship did less damage. The third shot barely scratched it. Sir, the Corvins are in trouble, Wu Bin said from the pilot station. Those enemy ships are adapting to their weapons. One of the Corvin ships, a heavy cruiser, took a direct hit from a Void Swarm bioweapon. The alien gun fired something that looked like liquid fire. It ate through the Corvin armor like acid through paper. The ship broke apart in a silent explosion. Gromax's ship is damaged, Sujin reported. His engines are failing. Tae-min didn't think. He just acted. Wu Bin, take us in. Hyjin, transfer power to forward shields. We're going to help them. Sir, our orders, Sujin started. Forget the orders, Tae-min said. People are dying. Soul's Pride moved fast, much faster than the big Corvin ships. They slipped between 2 Void Swarm attackers and reached Gromax's damaged vessel. The Corvin ship was spinning slowly, its back half gone. Daeho, Get your Marines ready for rescue, Taemin ordered. Ji Woo, open a channel to Gromax. The communication screen showed the Corvin warrior's face. His fur was burned, and there was blood on his forehead. Behind him, smoke filled his bridge. Human ship, Gromax said, surprise in his voice. YR. You here? This is not your fight. Yes, it is, Taemin said. We're allies, remember? Before Gromax could answer, a void swarm ship attacked them. But this time, something different happened. Hai-Jin had been watching the enemy weapons. She had noticed something the Corvins missed. Their bioweapons adapt to each target, she said quickly, but they have to lock onto a ship first. If we keep moving and changing our shield frequency, they can't learn fast enough. Do it, Taemin said. Soul's pride danced through space like a leaf in the wind. Every few seconds, Hai-Jin changed their shield settings. The void swarm ship fired again and again, but each shot was weaker than the last. The alien weapon couldn't figure out what it was shooting at. Incredible, Gromax whispered. How did you know? We watched, Sujin said simply. We learned. Daeho's Marines moved fast. They used small ships to reach the damaged Corvin vessel and started pulling out survivors. The Corvin warriors were twice as big as humans, but the Marines found ways to help them anyway. They worked together, human speed and Corvin strength. The battle ended when the void swarm ship suddenly ran away. They had lost 2 of their own and learned that the defenders were not as easy to kill as they thought. But the cost was high. 3 Corvin ships were destroyed and many warriors were dead. After the fight, Gromax came to Soul's Pride in person. The big warrior had to duck to fit through their doors. His arm was in a bandage made from human medical supplies. You saved my crew, he said to Taemin. I owe you a debt. No debt, Taemin replied. We're fighting the same enemy. Gromax looked around the human bridge. Everything was smaller here, but it was also faster and smarter. Screens showed information that changed every second. The crew worked together like parts of one machine. Your engineer, Gromax said, looking at Hai-Jin. She understood something we missed. The enemy adapts, but slowly. If we move fast enough, we can stay ahead of them, Hai-Jin finished. But it means changing our tactics completely. The war chief will not like this, Gromax warned. Corvins have fought the same way for 1,000 years. We do not change easily. Maybe it's time to try something new, Daeho said. The Marine sergeant had burns on his hands from helping rescue the Corvin crew, but he was smiling. Your people are brave fighters. Ours are good at thinking fast. Together we might be stronger. Over. The next few days, something new began to happen. Some Corvins started working with humans. Thrakis, the old engineer, came to study human technology with Hai-Jin. He was amazed by how quickly human computers could change and adapt. Your machines think like you do, he said. Always changing, always learning. That's how we survive. Hai-Jin explained, we're not the strongest or the biggest, but we're good at finding new ways to solve problems. Daeho started training with Corvin warriors. At first they laughed at his small size, but when he kept getting back up no matter how hard they hit him, they stopped laughing. When he showed them how to move faster in their heavy armor, they started listening. Humans don't give up, Gromax told his fellow warriors. I have seen this myself. They will find a way to win or die trying. But not everyone was happy with these changes. War Chief Brutok watched the humans and Corvins working together, and his face was dark with anger. We are warriors, he said to his commanders. We do not need lessons from softskins. The humans saved Gromax, Thrakis pointed out. Their tactics worked when ours failed. One lucky fight, Brutok growled. When the real enemy comes, we will see how long their tricks last. Sujin was studying the battle recordings when she found something that made her blood run cold. She called Tae Min to her station and showed him the data. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the screen. "The Void Swarm ships that attacked us. They were sending signals the whole time. They were learning from everything we did." "Learning what?" Tae Min asked. "How we fight, how we think, how we adapt." Su Jin's voice was quiet with fear. "Sir, I think this was just a test. They were studying us. Double quotes. Tae-Min stared at the data. If Su Jin was right, then the real enemy was still coming. And now they knew exactly what the defenders could do. "How long do we have?" he asked. Su Jin checked her calculations twice before answering. "Based on the signal patterns and the scout ship movements, I think the main fleet will arrive in 2 weeks, maybe less. How many ships? Thousands. Maybe tens of thousands." The bridge was quiet for a long moment. Everyone understood what this meant. The scout attack had been nothing compared to what was coming. And the enemy now knew all their tricks. "We need to tell the Corvins," Tae Min said finally. "Will they listen?" Hyjin asked. Tae-Min looked out at the Corvin fleet. Some of the ships were working with human vessels now, sharing information and tactics, but others stayed apart, proud and alone. "Some will," he said, "and maybe that will be enough." But deep down, he knew it wouldn't be. The storm was coming, and they needed every ally they could get. The question was whether humans and Corvins could truly learn to fight as one before it was too late. The space around the Centauri station was filled with ships. Human vessels moved between giant Corvin battleships like small fish swimming with whales. For 2 weeks, they had prepared for this moment. Now the enemy was here. Tae-Min stood on the Bridge of Soul's Pride and watched the enemy fleet come out of dark space. The Void Swarm ships appeared one by one, then in groups, then in massive waves. They kept coming until the stars were blocked out by their black forms. "How many?" he asked Su Jin. 50,000 ships, she whispered. "Maybe more. They're still coming through the jump point." The enemy fleet was like nothing anyone had ever seen. The ships moved together like a school of fish, flowing and changing. Direction as one. Some were small and fast like fighters. Others were huge, bigger than the largest Corvin battleship. All of them had the same dark, living look that made them seem more like sea creatures than machines. "All ships, this is War Chief Brutok," came the voice over the communication system. "Today we show these creatures what happens when they threaten our worlds. All Corvin ships, attack formation." The Corvin fleet moved forward in perfect lines. Their ships were mighty and their weapons were strong. Plasma cannons fired bright streams of energy into the enemy formation. For a moment, it looked like it might work. Several Void Swarm ships were destroyed in the first attack, but then something terrible happened. The destroyed ships didn't die completely. Instead, their pieces flew toward other Void Swarm vessels. The living ships absorbed the wreckage and grew larger. They learned from the weapons that had killed their brothers. "They're adapting faster than before," Hyjin said from her station. "Each ship that dies makes the others stronger." The second wave of Corvin attacks did less damage. A third wave barely scratched the enemy ships. The Void Swarm had learned to defend against Corvin weapons in just minutes. "Human ships, stay in support formation," ordered Admiral Vorthik, the senior Corvin commander. "Let us handle this." But Tae Min could see that the Corvins were in trouble. Their formation was breaking apart as enemy ships flowed around them like water. The Void Swarm moved in patterns that made no sense, attacking from all directions at once. "Sir," called Wu Bin from the pilot station, "Gromax's ship is surrounded. They're taking heavy fire." Tae Min looked at the tactical display. 3 Corvin ships were trapped in the middle of a swirling mass of enemy vessels. Their shields were failing, and their weapons couldn't target the fast-moving attackers. "All human ships, this is Commander Tae-min," he said into his communicator. "Break formation. We're going to help our allies." "Sir, our orders," Sujin started. "Our orders are to win this fight," Tae-min said. "And we can't do that by hiding behind the big ships." Seoul's Pride shot forward, followed by 20 other human vessels. They were small and fast compared to the massive ships around them. The Void Swarm creatures tried to adapt to their weapons, but the humans had learned something important from their earlier battles. "Ji Woo, start the music program," Tae-min ordered. "The what?" asked Deo. "Something I've been working on," Ji Woo said with a grin. She was the ship's communication officer, but she was also very smart about how information worked. Broadcasting. Random signals on all frequencies. Music, poetry, mathematical formulas. Anything I can think of. The effect was immediate. The Void Swarm ships began to move strangely. Their perfect coordination started to break down. They had been sharing information through some kind of mental link. But Ji Woo's random signals were like noise in their heads. "It's working," Sujin shouted. "Their formation is breaking up." Human ships moved through the confused enemy like dancers. They changed direction every few seconds, never staying in one place long enough for the bioships to adapt. Hygiene constantly modified their shields and weapons, making each human ship slightly different from the others. "This is impossible," said Gromax over the communication channel. "How are you doing this?" "We're not following any plan," Wu Bin replied as he spun their ship around a massive Void Swarm creature. "We're making it up as we go." "That's insane," said Admiral Vorthik. "That's human," Tae-min replied. The battle raged for hours. Slowly, the human tactics began to work. The Void Swarm ships couldn't adapt to enemies that never used the same trick twice. Every time they learned to counter one attack, the humans had already moved on to something else. But the cost was terrible. Ship after ship was destroyed on both sides. The space around Centauri Station was filled with wreckage in the bright. Flashes of exploding vessels. Too many good people were dying. "We can't keep this up forever," Hyjin said. Her face was pale and tired. She had been changing their systems non-stop for hours. "Eventually, we'll run out of new ideas." That's when Sujin made a discovery that changed everything. "Sir, I've been watching the enemy signals," she said. "They have a command structure. All those ships are controlled by a few large vessels in the center of their formation." Tae-min looked at the tactical display. She was right. Deep in the heart of the enemy fleet were 3 massive ships, larger than anything else on the battlefield. Streams of data flowed between them and the smaller vessels. "If we could take out those command ships, double quotes," he started, "the whole fleet would lose coordination," Sujin finished. "But sir, they're protected by thousands of smaller ships. No fleet could fight through all of them." "No fleet could," Tae-min agreed. "But maybe a few small, fast ships could slip through while everyone else is distracted." He opened a channel to all human and Corvan ships. "This is Commander Tae-min. I need volunteers for a suicide mission." The response was immediate. Every human ship captain volunteered. Even some Corvan commanders asked to join the attack. "Too many," Tae-min said. "We need most of the fleet to keep the enemy busy. I'll take just 5 ships." "I'm coming with you," said Gromax over the communicator. "Your ship is too big," Tae-min replied. "They'll see you coming." "Then I'll come on your ship," the Corvan warrior said. "You saved my crew. Now I help save yours." There was no time to argue. Tae-min gave the coordinates to 5 human captains, including Wu Bin. They would try to reach the command ships, while the rest of the fleet created a distraction. "Hyjin, how long do we have before our tricks stop working?" he asked, Maybe an hour, she said. After that, they'll have adapted to everything we can do. Then we better make this count. The small human ships moved through the battle like ghosts. Around them, the main fleet fought desperately against overwhelming numbers. Corvin ships fired everything they had, while human vessels danced between the enemies, always changing, always. Adapting got, but Tae-min could see that they were losing. There were just too many enemy ships. Even human cleverness had its limits when facing such numbers. There, Sujin said, pointing at the tactical display. The command ships. They're right in front of us. Tae-min looked at the three massive vessels ahead. They were beautiful in a terrible way, like living cities floating in space. Around them, thousands of smaller ships moved in perfect formation. This is it, he said to his crew. Everyone ready? But as they approached their target, the enemy noticed them. The perfect formation began to shift, closing like a trap around the small human ships. They know we're here, Wei Ben said. We're not going to make it. That's when Gromax stood up on the human bridge. The big Corvin warrior had been quiet during the flight, but now his eyes burned with determination. There is another way, he said, but it will require trust between our peoples. What do you mean? Tae-min asked. Gromax smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Time to show these creatures what happens when humans and Corvins truly fight together. Gromax moved to the communication station on Soul's Pride. His huge hands looked strange on the human controls, but he worked with surprising care. All around them, void swarm ships were closing in like a dark net. What are you doing? Tae-min asked. Calling my people, Gromax replied. Telling them to do something they have never done before. The Corvin warrior opened a channel to the main fleet. All Corvin ships, this is Gromax. I am with the humans now. We have found a way to win, but you must trust us completely. Gromax, what are you saying? Came Admiral Vorthic's voice. Return to formation immediately. No, sir. The human way is the only way. Listen to me carefully. What Gromax told his people was simple but revolutionary. Instead of fighting in formation, the Corvin ships would break apart and follow human commands. Each Corvin vessel would pair with a human ship. The humans would provide tactics and coordination, while the Corvins provided firepower. This is madness, Admiral Vorthic said. We do not take orders from our allies? Gromax interrupted. Sir, I have fought beside these humans. They saved my crew when our tactics failed. Their way works. There was a long silence. Around them, the battle was getting worse. More ships were dying every minute. Do it, Admiral Vorthic said finally. All ships pair with human vessels. Follow their lead. What happened next was like watching a dance. Human ships were fast and clever, but their weapons were weak. Corvin ships were slow and predictable, but they could destroy anything they hit. Together, they became something new. Wu-bin guided a Corvan battleship through impossible turns, while its massive guns fired with perfect timing. Sujin fed targeting data to 3 Corvin cruisers, helping them hit enemies that were too fast for their normal weapons. Ji Wu coordinated the communication between dozens of ships, creating a network that let them work as one. Incredible, said Haijin as she watched the tactical display. Look at them go. The combined fleet moved through the enemy formation like a sword through cloth. Human speed and Corvin power worked together perfectly. The Void Swarm ships tried to adapt, but they couldn't understand this new way of fighting. The command ships are just ahead, Sujin reported. But, sir, there are still thousands of enemy vessels between us and them. That's when Daeho had an idea. The Marine sergeant had been quiet during the space battle, but now he saw something the others missed. We don't need to fight through them, he said. We need to go around them. Around them? Taemin asked. The enemy ships are all focused on the big battle, Daeho explained. But there's a gap in their formation. Small ships could slip through. The asteroid field behind the command vessels. Taemin looked at the tactical display. Daeho was right. There was a narrow path through the broken rocks where no enemy ships were stationed. It would be dangerous, but it might work. That's a one-way trip, Wu Bin said. Even if we reach the command ships, we'll never make it back through all those enemies. Then we better make sure we succeed? Taemin replied. Soul's Pride and 4 other human ships broke away from the main battle. They moved quickly toward the asteroid field, using the rocks as cover. Behind them, the combined human-Corvan fleet kept the enemy busy with constant attacks. The asteroid field was like flying through a storm of stone. Rocks the size of buildings tumbled through space, crashing into each other and breaking apart. The human ships had to move carefully, dodging between the massive chunks of stone. Energy signatures ahead, Sujin reported. The command ships are on the other side of this field. They emerged from the asteroids to see the 3 massive command vessels floating in space. Each one was the size of a small moon, covered in strange growths that pulsed with light. Streams of data flowed between them like glowing rivers. Those are the brains of the enemy fleet, Haijin said. Take them out, and the whole swarm loses coordination. But getting close would not be easy. The command ships were protected by layers of smaller vessels. And now that the humans had been spotted, those guardians were moving to attack. All ships spread out, Taemin ordered. Don't let them predict our movements. The 5 human ships scattered like leaves in the wind. Wu Bin took Soul's Pride in a crazy spiral pattern that made no sense to anyone watching. The other pilots did the same, each one flying differently. The Void Swarm Guardians fired their bioweapons, but the humans were too unpredictable. Every time the enemy adapted to one ship's movement, that pilot would change to something completely different. We're getting closer, Sujin said. But our weapons aren't strong enough to damage those command ships. Their armor is too thick. That's when Ji Wu spoke up. What if we don't attack the armor? What if we attack their communications? What do you mean? Taemin asked. Those data streams between the command ships, Ji Wu explained. They're how the commanders talk to each other. If we could disrupt that signal, the command ships would be isolated, Sujin finished. They couldn't coordinate their attacks. It was a desperate plan, but it might work. The 5 human ships moved closer to the command vessels, dodging guardian ships and weapons fire. Each pilot flew like they were dancing, never repeating the same move twice. There! Ji Wu pointed at a stream of light connecting 2 of the command ships. That's their main communication link. Wu Bin flew Soul's Pride directly through the energy stream. For a moment, the ship was surrounded by crackling light. Then something amazing happened. The data flow stopped. It worked. Sujin shouted. The command ships are losing connection. All around them, the Void Swarm fleet began to move strangely. Ships that had been perfectly coordinated started bumping into each other. The smooth formations broke apart as individual commanders tried to figure out what to do. Hit the other data streams. Taemin ordered. The human ships flew between the command vessels, breaking every communication link they could find. It was dangerous work. Guardian ships kept attacking, and the command vessels themselves began firing massive weapons. One human ship was destroyed when it flew too close to a command vessel's main gun. Another took heavy damage and had to fall back. But the remaining ships kept working, cutting the invisible threads that held the enemy fleet together. Last data stream, Wu Bin said as he lined up for another attack run. But as they approached, something unexpected happened. The command vessel they were attacking began to change shape. Its surface rippled like water, and new weapons appeared all over its hull. "It's adapting to our attacks," Hyjin said. "We need to try something different." That's when Gromax stood up again. During the flight through the asteroid field, he had been working on something at one of the human computer stations. "I have been learning your human ways," he said. "Now let me show you something Corvin." He touched a control, and suddenly Soul's Pride was broadcasting a new signal. It wasn't random noise like before. It was a Corvin war song, something old and fierce and proud. The effect on the command ship was immediate. Its surface stopped changing, and its weapons stopped firing. For a moment, it just floated in space like it was listening. "Corvin songs contain mathematical patterns," Gromax explained. "Something about the rhythm confuses their adaptation process." "That's brilliant," Hyjin said. "But we need more than one song." "Then we make more," Jiwoo said. She began modifying the broadcast, mixing human music with Corvin war chants. The combination was strange but powerful. All three command ships stopped moving. Their surfaces rippled and changed, but slowly, like they couldn't decide what to do. The adaptation process that made them so dangerous was fighting against itself. "Now," Taemin shouted. The remaining human ships attacked together. Their weapons weren't strong enough to destroy the command vessels, but they didn't need to be. The ships hit the communication arrays and computer cores, the parts that controlled the rest of the fleet. One by one, the massive command ships went dark. Their lights faded, and their surfaces stopped moving. Across the entire battlefield, 50,000 Void Swarm ships suddenly had no one to tell them what to do. "It's working," Sujin said in amazement. "The whole enemy fleet is breaking up." Without coordination, the Void Swarm ships began to retreat. Some tried to continue fighting, but they had no plan and no leadership. The human Corvin fleet moved, among them like hunters, picking off isolated groups in just a few hours. The greatest threat the galaxy had ever known was running away into dark space. "We did it," Wubin said quietly. "We actually did it." But Tao Min was looking at the cost. Hundreds of ships were destroyed. Thousands of good people were dead. The victory had come at a terrible price. "Yes," he said. "We did it together." 3 days after the battle, Taemin stood in the observation deck of Centauri Station and watched the repair ships work. Human and Corvin vessels floated side by side, their crews helping each other fix damage and tend to wounded. It was a sight he had never expected to see. The door behind him opened, and War Chief Brutok walked in. The massive Corvin leader looked tired. His armor was dented and scarred from the battle. But when he saw Taemin, he stopped and did something that shocked the human commander. He bowed his head. "Human commander," Brutok said, his voice quiet. "I owe you an apology." "Sir?" Taemin was confused. He had expected anger, maybe even punishment for disobeying orders during the battle. "I called your people weak," Brutok continued. "I said you were too small to matter in a real fight. I was wrong." The war chief moved to stand beside Taemin at the window. For a long moment, they watched the ships together in silence. "Your people saved us all," Brutok said finally. "Not with bigger guns or stronger armor, but with something we had forgotten. The ability to change, to try new things, to never give up looking for a better way." "We couldn't have won without your people either," Taemin replied. "Corvin courage and strength made the difference. We just found a way to use it better." Brutok nodded slowly. "Yes, together we are stronger than either of us alone. This is a lesson I will not forget." Over the next few weeks, everything began to change. The first sign was when Hyjin and Threkis presented their joint report to the combined fleet command. The old Corvin engineer and the young human woman had been working together to study captured Void Swarm technology. Their ships are biological computers, Hygiene explained to the assembled officers. They adapt by literally changing their structure at the molecular level. But they have weaknesses, Thrakus added. They cannot handle too much random information, and they struggle with rapid changes in tactics. What does this mean for future defense? Asked Admiral Vorthik. It means we need to keep working together, Hygiene said. Human adaptability and Corvin strength. If we combine our technologies and tactics, we can build defenses that will stop the Void Swarm if they ever return. The meeting approved the creation of joint research stations. Human and Corvin scientists would work side by side, sharing knowledge and developing new technologies. It was the beginning of something that had never existed before, true cooperation between the species. Meanwhile, Deho was busy with his own project. The Marine Sergeant had been working with Gromax to create new training programs. Human and Corvin soldiers would learn to fight together, combining their different strengths. Humans are fast and clever, Gromax explained to a group of young Corvin warriors, but they are not weak. I have seen them fight against impossible odds and never surrender. And Corvins are not just brute force, Deho told a group of human Marines. They are brave and honorable. When they fight beside you, you know they will never abandon you. The training sessions were hard at first. Humans and Corvins had very different ways of doing things. But slowly, they began to understand each other. They learned that different didn't mean wrong. It just meant there was more than one way to solve a problem. Sujin found herself in charge of a new intelligence division. Her job was to watch for signs of the Void Swarm's return and to study other threats that might face the galaxy. She worked with both human and Corvin analysts, creating a network that could spot danger before it arrived. The Void Swarm retreated, but they're still out there, she reported to the Fleet Command. They're probably adapting to our tactics right now, preparing for another attack. How long do we have? Rutak asked. Years, maybe decades, Sujin replied, but they will be back. And when they come, they'll be ready for everything we did before. Then we must be ready with new tactics, Admiral Vorthik said. Things they cannot predict or adapt to. Jiwoo's communication protocols became the standard for all mixed fleets. Her system allowed human and Corvin ships to work together seamlessly, sharing information and coordinating attacks in real time. But more than that, it helped the two species understand each other better. Communication is about more than just words, Jiwoo explained to a group of new officers. It's about understanding how different minds work. Humans think fast and change quickly. Corvins think deeply and value tradition. Both ways have their place. Wu Bin became the director of the first integrated pilot academy. Young humans and Corvins would train together, learning to fly in mixed formations. The academy's motto was, "Different strengths, one sky." Flying is about more than controlling a ship, Wu Bin told his students. It's about thinking in 3 dimensions, about adapting to changing conditions, about working with your wingmates, no matter what species they are. But perhaps the biggest change came from an unexpected source. Gromax approached Taemin one day with an unusual request. I want to serve on a human ship, the Corvin warrior said. Permanently. Why? Taemin asked, surprised. Because I have learned something fighting beside your people, Gromax replied. There is strength in being different. My people have become too set in our ways. We need to remember how to change, how to grow. And I can learn that from humans? You can teach. You ask that there is no shame in admitting when the old ways don't work, Taemin said. And we can learn from you that some things are worth preserving, worth fighting for no matter what. Gromax became the first Corvin to serve as a permanent crew member on a human ship. His example inspired others. Soon mixed crews were common. Throughout the fleet, Humans and Corvins working side by side, learning from each other every day. The new alliance was tested many times in the years that followed. There were conflicts with space pirates, territorial disputes with other alien species, and natural disasters that threatened entire star systems. But each challenge was met with the combined strength of human adaptability and Corvin courage. 10 years later, Tae-min stood once again on the observation deck of Centauri Station. But now the view was very different. The station had grown into a massive complex where humans and Corvins lived and worked together. Children of both species played in the same parks and attended the same schools. Hae-jin, now the director of joint research, approached him with a report. "The new defense grid is online," she said. "Hybrid technology, combining the best of both our peoples. If the Void Swarm returns, we'll be ready. And if they don't?" Tae-min asked. "Then we'll use our time to keep learning, keep growing," Hae-jin replied. "There's so much we can accomplish together." Tae-min nodded and looked out at the ships in the harbor. Human vessels flew alongside Corvin warships in perfect formation. Crews that had once viewed each other with suspicion now worked together like family. "You know," he said to Hae-jin, "when this all started, I thought the Corvins were the beasts we had to fight beside. And now I realize that we're all just different kinds of people trying to protect what we love," Tae-min said. "The real beasts were the ones who wanted to destroy everything. We stopped them not by being the strongest or the smartest, but by learning to work together." A young voice called out behind them. They turned to see a group of cadets approaching, of human and Corvin laughing together as they discussed their latest training exercise. In their easy friendship, Tae-min could see the future that they had all fought to make possible. "The next generation won't make our mistakes," Hae-jin observed. "They'll grow up knowing that differences make us stronger, not weaker. That's the most important victory of all," Tae-min agreed. As the sun set over Centauri Station, casting long shadows across the observation deck, Tae-min felt a deep sense of satisfaction. They had faced the darkness and won. Not through conquest or dominance, but through cooperation and understanding. The galaxy was safer now. And it would continue to be safe as long as people remembered the lesson of the Void Swarm War, that the greatest strength comes not from fighting alone, but from standing together with those who are different from you. In the end, it wasn't about humans or Corvins. It was about all the different kinds of people in the galaxy learning to work together, to protect each other, and to build something better than any of them could create alone. That was the human way, and it had become the way of all their allies.